Story 1. The last bus stop in Nevada. It was just after midnight when Daniel's car finally started showing signs of trouble. He had been driving for nearly 6 hours across a lonely stretch of highway in northern Nevada. The road was long, straight, and empty. For miles in every direction there was nothing but desert, scattered rocks, and the occasional dry bush. Daniel was heading to Reno. After visiting a friend in Utah, his plan had been to stop earlier for the night. But one thing led to another, and he ended up driving much later than expected. That's when the dashboard warning light came on. At first, he ignored it. Older cars sometimes did that for no reason. But about 10 minutes later, the engine began making a strange clicking sound. Daniel sighed and glanced at the gas gauge. Half tank. So it wasn't fuel, he checked his phone for the nearest gas station or town, but the signal was completely gone. Just as he started thinking he might have to pull over, he saw something ahead, a small building with a faded sign. As he got closer, the headlights revealed an old wooden structure sitting beside the road. The sign read, Silver Creek Bus Stop. It looked abandoned. Still, it was the only place around, so Daniel pulled in. The gravel crunched under his tires as he parked near the building. The place looked like it hadn't been used in years. The windows were dusty, and the paint on the sign was peeling off. There was also an old bench sitting outside under a flickering yellow light, but something immediately caught his attention. Someone was sitting on the bench, a man. He wore a long dark coat and had his head lowered like he was staring at the ground. Daniel didn't notice him at first when pulling in. The man slowly looked up as Daniel turned off his engine. His face was partially hidden by the shadow from the light above. Evening, the man said calmly. His voice sounded strangely relaxed for someone sitting alone at a deserted bus stop in the middle of the night. Daniel forced a polite smile. Evening? He stepped out of the car and popped the hood, pretending to check the engine even though he had no idea what he was looking for. The man continued watching him. After a few seconds, he spoke again. You heading west? Daniel paused. Yeah, Reno. The man nodded slowly. Bus used to run that direction years ago. Daniel looked toward the empty road. Used to? Stopped coming a long time ago. Something about the way he said it made Daniel uneasy. Then the man stood up, and Daniel noticed something strange behind the building. There was another vehicle, a van. It was parked without lights, partly hidden in the darkness. Daniel was sure it hadn't been there when he first pulled in. The man began walking toward him slowly. You having car trouble? He asked. Maybe, Daniel replied, trying to sound casual. Battery? Engine? Not sure yet. The man stopped a few feet away and looked into the open hood. Then he glanced toward the road. Funny thing about this place, he said. Daniel didn't respond. Cars stop here sometimes when they break down. The man smiled faintly. But nobody passes through here at night. A cold feeling ran through Daniel's stomach. Then he heard something, a faint sound, a car door closing. From behind the building. Daniel slowly turned his head. And saw a second man stepping out from behind the van. The first man noticed Daniel looking. His smile widened slightly. Good thing you stopped, he said quietly. Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he slammed the hood shut, jumped into his car, and twisted the key. For a moment, nothing happened. His heart pounded. The two men began walking toward the car. Then, suddenly, the engine started. Daniel didn't waste a second. He slammed the car into reverse, tires spraying gravel everywhere, then swung back onto the highway and sped into the darkness. In the rear-view mirror, he saw the two men standing under the flickering bus stop light, watching him leave. They never tried to chase him, but Daniel couldn't shake one thought during the next 100 miles. If his engine hadn't started, he probably wouldn't have left that bus stop. Story 2. The wrong Uber in Chicago. It was a little after 11:30 p.m. when Melissa finally stepped out of the office building in downtown Chicago. She had stayed late finishing a project, and now the streets were mostly quiet. A few taxis passed now and then, but the sidewalks were almost empty. Normally she took the train home, but at that hour the trains were running slower, and she didn't want to wait alone on the platform. So she opened the Uber app and requested a ride. The driver accepted within a minute. The app showed the driver's name as Kevin, driving a silver Toyota Camry, and the estimated arrival time was 4 minutes. Melissa stood under a streetlight outside the building entrance, occasionally checking her phone. 2 minutes later, a car pulled up to the curb in front of her. It was a silver sedan. The driver rolled down the passenger window. "Melissa?" he asked. She glanced quickly at the car. The color looked right, and at that moment she didn't think much about checking the license plate. "Yeah," she said. "Hop in." She opened the back door and got inside. The car smelled faintly of cigarettes, which was strange since most rideshare cars were smoke-free, but she ignored it. "Long night?" the driver asked as he started driving. "Yeah," she replied. "Just heading home." He nodded but didn't say much after that. Melissa looked down at her phone to check the ride on the Uber app. That's when she noticed something strange. The app still said, "Driver arriving in 2 minutes." Her stomach tightened. She slowly looked up at the driver. "Hey, are you Kevin?" she asked carefully. There was a short pause. "Yeah," the driver replied, but his answer sounded uncertain. Melissa checked the app again. The little car icon was still moving toward her pickup location, which meant the real Uber hadn't arrived yet. Her heart began to race. She looked toward the dashboard, trying to see the driver's phone mounted near the steering wheel. There was no rideshare app open. Just a blank screen. The driver suddenly glanced at her in the mirror. "You said your place was north, right?" Melissa hadn't told him her address or even the direction. "Actually, I think you passed my street," she said quickly. "Oh," he said. "My mistake." But instead of turning around, he kept driving. The city lights were slowly getting farther apart. The streets were becoming quieter. Melissa felt a growing sense of panic. Then her phone vibrated. A notification from Uber popped up. "Your driver Kevin has arrived," which meant the real driver was still back at the office building. Melissa forced herself to stay calm. "Hey," she said casually. "I forgot something at work. Can you drop me at the next corner?" The driver didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowed down slightly. Then he asked a strange question. "Do you live alone?" Melissa felt her chest tighten. "Actually, no," she said quickly. "My boyfriend's waiting for me." The driver's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then suddenly he pulled the car over to the side of the road. "All right," he said flatly. "Get out." Melissa didn't hesitate. She opened the door and stepped onto the sidewalk as fast as she could. The moment the door closed, the car sped away down the street. Her hands were shaking as she walked quickly toward a nearby convenience store with bright lights inside. Only once she was safely inside did she finally breathe again. She checked the Uber app. Her real driver, Kevin, had already canceled the ride after waiting too long. Melissa never found out who the man was, but later that night, when she reported the incident, the police told her something disturbing. There had been several cases in Chicago where people pretended to be rideshare drivers to pick up passengers late at night. Some victims were robbed. Others simply disappeared. From that night on, Melissa made one rule for herself. She always checked the license plate before getting into any car, because if she hadn't realized the mistake when she did, that ride might have ended very differently. Story 3. The fake police stop in Arizona. It was close to 2:15 a.m. when Tyler noticed the flashing lights behind him. He had been driving for hours through a long stretch of highway in northern Arizona, heading toward Flagstaff after visiting friends in Phoenix. The road was completely empty. No towns. No gas stations. Just miles of desert and scattered hills under the dim glow of the moon. Tyler had been zoning out, listening to quiet music, when red and blue lights suddenly appeared in his rearview mirror. At first, He assumed it was a real police officer. His first thought was that maybe he had been speeding without realizing it. So he slowed down and looked for a safe place to pull over, but the road was narrow with almost no shoulder. After another minute of driving, he finally found a small gravel area and pulled his car to the side. The flashing lights stopped about 20 feet behind him. Tyler turned off his engine and waited. Normally officers approach pretty quickly, but this time no one came. 30 seconds passed. Then a full minute. Tyler started to feel uneasy. He glanced in his side mirror. The vehicle behind him looked strange. Instead of a normal police cruiser shape, it looked more like a dark SUV. The lights on top were flashing, but something about them didn't look right. They seemed smaller. After nearly 2 minutes, the driver's door of the SUV finally opened. A man stepped out. He was wearing dark clothing and what looked like a police-style vest, but even from a distance, Tyler noticed something odd. There was no visible badge reflecting the light. The man walked slowly toward Tyler's car, but he didn't carry a flashlight like most officers did. Tyler felt his stomach tighten. As the man got closer, Tyler cracked his window slightly. "Evening," the man said. His voice was calm but strangely flat. "License and registration?" Tyler hesitated. Normally officers introduced themselves first. And something about the situation felt wrong. Still, he didn't want to cause trouble. "Sure," Tyler said slowly. He reached for his wallet, but before handing anything over, he asked, "What was I pulled over for?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past Tyler into the back seat of the car. Then he said quietly, "Routine check." That made Tyler even more uncomfortable. Highway patrol almost never did random checks like that in the middle of nowhere. Then Tyler noticed something else. The SUV behind him had no police markings at all. Just a plain black vehicle. The man suddenly leaned closer to the window. "Step out of the vehicle," he said. That was the moment Tyler's instincts kicked in. Every alarm in his head started going off. "Is there a problem, officer?" Tyler asked carefully. The man's tone changed slightly. "Step out of the vehicle." Tyler looked past him, toward the SUV again, and that's when he saw something chilling. Another man was sitting in the passenger seat. Watching. Not wearing any uniform, just staring directly at him. Tyler realized immediately what was happening. This wasn't a traffic stop. It was a setup. Without saying another word, Tyler suddenly slammed his foot on the gas. His tires spun on the gravel as the car shot forward onto the highway. Behind him, he heard someone shouting. Down the mirror, he saw the fake police SUV quickly turning around. For the next few minutes, Tyler drove faster than he ever had before. The SUV followed for nearly 2 miles. Then suddenly, the lights turned off. The vehicle slowed down and disappeared into the darkness. Tyler didn't stop driving until he reached a real gas station in Flagstaff. Nearly 40 minutes later, when he told the police what happened, they took the report very seriously. Apparently, there had been multiple reports of fake police stops along remote highways in Arizona and New Mexico. Criminals would use flashing lights to pull drivers over in isolated areas. And by the time anyone realized something was wrong, there was no one around to help. The officer taking Tyler's report told him something he would never forget. "You did the right thing driving away," the officer said. Then he paused before adding, "Because people who stop for those guys usually don't get another chance."